joining us. Wanted to get him on for a few weeks here. Finally got him back with us. Voice of the Montreal Canadiens on the radio side of things. Sean Campbell and the Montreal Alouettes. Last time I think we talked to each other, we were stuck in a massive hailstorm here in Regina, Sean.
Yeah, that was fun. You drove me back to the hotel, even though it was like 2 blocks away, because you were and you did it at a commercial break, which was very, very impressive. Now, you're not wrong. Because I see it says Montreal Canadiens voice. Yes, I host Habs Lunch. And yes, I have called Montreal Canadiens games. I've called about 12 this year. I'm the backup guy on our station. I'm the full-time guy for the Alouettes, yes. And I have done since 2016 fill in. But I'm not the official voice of the Montreal Canadiens. I just want to clarify. It's not wrong. You don't have to take it down. I'm just, just clarifying. I'm just clarifying it. That's fine. I've called games this year, 100%. I've done that. Don't worry.
I wanted to do this. Well, you're always, Tuesdays is usually a NHL heavy day, and Don comes on with me Tuesday, and then I'm like, ooh, Wednesday. There's nothing going on, and Don, you want to come on Wednesday, and Sean can come on. So I'm gonna let Don's a massive Habs fan here. So I'm going to let you take the floor for a bit, Donnie.
Well, there's so much to talk about, particularly, Sean, after last night. And I guess the headline grabber is Dobish. Jakub Dobish, who's, 23 wins as a rookie, ties Patrick Wall, so he's going to beat him. 1 behind Price. He's going to beat Price as well. What is he? The last 18, he's 13-3-2. He was a later round draft pick. He looks like he's the goalie of the future, even though they've got another goalie of the future wasn't playing last night. I mean, are the Montreal Canadiens in the best position with 2 young goalies of any team in the NHL?
I mean, it's a nice position to be in because you have that young ability and guys that can win in the NHL today. They're young, they're rookies. You have 2 rookies starting. Montembeault's just sitting there as the third string, but a little bit more on Jakub Dobish. We were playing it on my show today. It's the DJ Khaled song. All I do is win, 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 no matter what. Like that's his theme, right? All he does is win. And 23 is not a big number, but you have to realize he's never really been the number one. And Montembeault was the number one. He got extra starts because Montembeault was struggling. And then Dobish hit a consistency issue. So then Fowler came in around December. And then it was 50-50 with Montembeault and Dobish. And then they were like, okay, Montembeault, you're struggling. We'll call Fowler. And then it was 50-50. It's really only been in the last stretch that he's kind of started to take the number one. But even then, it's like a test right now. Are you strong enough to be the number one? And Jakub Dobish is interesting because he is a later round pick. Of the other many things I do at the station, last year I was the voice of the Laval Rockets, so I saw a ton of Jakub Dobish. And his first touch after leaving Ohio State and then coming into playing Laval, he looked rough at the beginning of the season, a year and a half ago.
Interesting.
And he was there with like Strauss-Mann. You're like, who are these guys? I don't know much about them. Watching them, wow, he has taken Marco Marciano, their goaltending coach, who was with Laval, got promoted this year. They've been working together for a long time. So Dobish is really taking that, escalation point where he's moving all the way up. Like it's nice, slow and steady to the point where he is now that he helped them pick up 2 points against Carolina last night. Absolutely.
Is it underrated how competitive he is? Dobish himself.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting when it comes to goaltending because they're their own breed, and he is one of those players where, and it's Montreal media too. The Montreal media adores him. They don't know what he's going to say or do. He's got a, little, like my son who just turned 14, loves Jakub Dobish. And at first he's like, he's the only guy in the league that has the red bars. And then he was excited about that. And he goes, he's a little different. And then there was this whole thing with him. His teammates were posting a photo of him on a mattress because he was getting a deal from a mattress company here in Montreal. And it was all over social media. And he was the most awkward thing in the world. But in my head, we spoke about it. We're like, that's not awkward. That's just who he is. He's kind of a goofy, awkward guy. And so that competitive nature that you talk about, it doesn't come across all the time, but he wants to be in every night. He wants to be the starter. He wants to be the guy when the playoffs starts. There is a huge fire And I kind of see it when he's the star of the game. You know, the first star does the big tour, right? And the second star kind of loops and comes right back. Third star, you poke your head out, and then you go back in. If he's the third star of the game, he's doing a whole lap like European style. And I'm like, relax, buddy. You know, you're not the first star. You don't have to pump your tires out. But no, I'm kidding. But it's his personality, and he is very, very competitive.
Wow, I had no idea. He sounds like quite the ride. Okay, we have John, the Habs fan, on the phone, and he's got a question for you. John, are you there?
Yes, I am. Hey, Sean, how you doing, buddy?
Good. How you doing, Sean?
Doing good. Hey, Sean, I missed you on your show, like you said today. I was at work, but I listen all the time. And last night when I called in on the Delmar postgame show, I mentioned to Mitch and Peter that Dobish and Fowler remind me of Halak and Price.
I wonder if they're going to have that kind of competition. If you remember, we go back to 2010. Halak kind of took over when Price was anointed the next one, right? Price showed up in 07 and 08 and 09, but in 2010 on that playoff run, it was Halak that kind of was the one that they leaned on, and they were able to go on that run in the playoffs. I'm curious if it's that kind of same situation where Dobish takes the run, but the future, everybody knew Carey Price was the future down, after Halak, it didn't really matter. Like, everybody still leans on Jacob Fowler being the future. He's only got a handful of NHL games, and he's a rookie. So I could see those similarities, John, for sure, about that. There's a bit of an age difference, and they weren't both rookies at the time. Here you have two legitimate rookies just starting the rest of the way for the Canadians. So it is interesting. Two young goalies battling it out.
And, I agree, Sean, and I just can't wait to watch us in a couple of years win the Stanley Cup, because it's coming. I say in 2 years.
Why not this year?
Well, that's interesting.
This year, Sean, this year we're going to the Eastern Conference Final. That's
John,
my prediction.
Listen to this.
Okay.
Last night was Montreal's 24th comeback win. You probably know this, Sean. Matching the most in team history. The other two times Montreal had 24 comeback wins. They'll probably have more now before the season's over. But the last time was in 75-76 and then 92-93. They won the Cup both those years that they had this many comebacks. Yeah. So is that a harbinger of what's ahead here?
Well,
are they going to surprise in the playoffs? That's quite a stat.
Yeah, in the East, it's funny. So you look at the standings in the East, it's so tight. But then you look at the top, and you see Carolina and Buffalo. Buffalo's on a heater. Carolina, Canadians just beat them yesterday. And I know if you look at the shots, but that's kind of Carolina's style of play versus Montreal's style of play. Completely different. Carolina goes volume. Montreal goes, they try and pick the best shot possible. Montreal has the highest shooting percentage because they always shoot from a dangerous position. So shooting shots, and you look at 43-19, they got blown out. Yeah, a little bit in the first, and then the Canadians have the lead, so then they stop shooting. But you look at the top teams at Buffalo and Carolina, and if you're the Montreal Canadiens, you look at those teams, and they're beatable. They're beatable teams for you and what you're able to do. And then get into the wild card teams, the Buffalo, the Boston, the Ottawa, Detroit, the Islanders, Columbus. They're all, Montreal can beat those teams. The big one I would say is probably Tampa Bay. That's wherever Tampa Bay goes in. And John goes off and says they're going to make the conference finals. Montreal's path might be Tampa Bay, then Buffalo. That's going to be a little tougher to do. Their first round matchup might be Tampa Bay. So, it's very possible. Why not this year? Because there's no Colorado, Minnesota, or Dallas in their way on the way to the Stanley Cup final. But, every other team's going to say what I just said, right? For Buffalo, they go, well, we could beat Montreal. We could beat Boston. Every team will – the 8 teams that make the team in the East will believe they can beat the 7 other teams.
I've watched a few games on TV, so I don't know enough about it. But the East seems wide open in the NHL. With Montreal, though, Sean, if let's fast forward this to July and we go, they didn't have enough this for the playoff run. They weren't built with this, maybe because they didn't make any moves because they're doing this rebuild. I know enough about that. They're doing it the right way, but maybe what are they lacking to grind it out in the playoffs?
Ooh, that's a good one. Good question, Barney.
Yeah, so everybody wants them to get bigger, or they should have gotten bigger, they needed to get bigger. I think if it doesn't go their way, size and grinding out. You saw what happened with the Capitals last year in the first round. They got physically beat up a little bit in a 5-game series. It was a very tight 5-game series. However, physically, the Capitals were the bigger and stronger team last year in that first round. This year, they're a year older, and it's pretty much the same group. I think if you were to project in July and we're sitting there going, what happened in the playoffs, I would say that they were a little top heavy. And what I mean is top heavy, when push comes to shove, Marty St. Louis really relies on his top guys. You'll see Caulfield, Slafkovsky, Suzuki, Matheson, Dobson, Hudson, Demidov out on the ice. It will be about secondary scoring. It will be about other defensemen having the ability to eat the minutes that Matheson and Dobson and Hudson are eating. I think that you'll see a Struble in the playoffs or a Jack-Eye in the playoffs, and they're going to be sitting at 7-8 minutes. And Matheson is going to have to go, 25, 26, 25, 26. And that's just, you need him at 22. You need him at 23 to maximize what he's able to do. If the power play doesn't score, and then Slafkovsky or Cole Caulfield drives up for a couple games, is Newhook scoring? Is Evans scoring? Is Zachary Baldock, who's 31 games, is in? I would say what they didn't do is maybe they need a little more depth, and they're too top heavy, because when push comes to shove in the playoffs, it's going to be tie games. You're going to look going into and it's going to go to a second overtime. You're like, how is Nick Suzuki playing 52 minutes?
Yeah,
that's what it's going to be.
I agree. And it looks like Struble is taking over from Jack-Eye in terms of their platooning. I think, fourth game in a row, fourth or fifth for Struble last night. Jack-Eye looks like the odd man out. If I was Jack-Eye's agent, I'd want to be traded, because I don't even think the defensive system that they play helps him at all in the game that he's capable of. Do you think Jack-Eye's gone, and will he suddenly appear if they have to play Tampa? Because I see Tampa running Montreal right through the walls right now.
Yeah, that was like I said. Yeah, that's the biggest. To me, that's the one matchup I wouldn't like for the Canadians is Tampa. I don't like that matchup. I think they'd be up for the task, and maybe Jack-Eye would get in that lineup, because you're talking about guys that they're going to use for 8 to 9 minutes. And again, we deal with this all. Jack-Eye needs to be in the lineup. Well, Jack-Eye, he needs to throw his weight around and make Kucherov pay. Jack-Eye's not going to be on the ice against Kucherov. It doesn't really make a difference. If he is, that's not what the Canadians want. I don't know if he's done, by the way. The Jack-Eye's, everybody thinks Jack-Eye's an 82-game defenseman. He has never proven that, even in his young career. He's never proven that. And if he goes somewhere else, it's going to be more of the same. He's a 6'7". That's what he is. He's an NHL defenseman, NHL ability. Maybe another team, he'd be a 5. But on the Canadians, he's kind of 7 right now. And Struble's taking that up. If you look at their numbers, and it depends if you're an analytics guy or not, Struble is a guy that can make that breakout pass way better than Jack-Eye. Mm-hmm. Jack-Eye, once they're set up in their zone defensively, is better than Struble. So once they're set up and they're in their system, it's okay. It's when they're transitioning or when they want to get out of the zone. Jack-Eye can skate it up a little bit, but his breakout pass is nowhere near what Struble's able to do. But Struble runs around in his own zone more than Jack-Eye does. It's kind of pick your poison of what you're doing. But the Canadians, as watching this team, they're about transition. They're about that quick pass. They're about getting from one zone to the other zone very quickly on the counterattack. And that's why they probably lean on Struble a little bit more. On top of that, Struble has the ability to play with Hudson every now and then. They will not put Jack-Eye with Hudson at all.
I'm just kind of looking through, impressive, right? With Suzuki plus 29, Caulfield plus 23, Hudson plus 28. Those are solid numbers. When you go down this roster, though, maybe to both of you guys, but Sean, first to you, who do they need more out of, or who are they going to need more out of come playoff time?
Everybody else.
Pretty much. Yeah. They'll need more. It's funny because you say that. They'll need more out of those guys because they're going to lean on those guys. I think, to me, depending what happens with Kirby Dach, there's a couple players. I know who Jake Evans is. I know exactly what he's going to do out there. The veteran line of Gallagher, Anderson, Deneau, they're very simple. They know what they're doing. The guys I'll say you need more from. I call it the leftovers, because they know who that second line is. Demidov, Young, Kapanen, Young, Newhook, they're all doing what they need to do. I don't know what Doc does when he's on the ice. I don't think he understands his role. I find he's a question mark. Zachary Bolduc is a question mark for me. I feel that both players are struggling to figure out what their identity is on this team. And they'll play alongside with Texier. Texier's different. I know who Texier is. Texier is no problem. I understand his identity. But Bolduc and Doc are the two biggest question marks for me on this team, because they can provide offense, but they're not in offensive roles right now. They're in a third line, checking, scores a goal here and then, get some offensive time. Maybe you'll get a power play. Maybe you won't. I just don't know who they are, and I don't think they know who they are.
Yeah, and you talk about Brendan Gallagher, 21 goals last year. I think he's only got 6 this year. And yet in the game that he sat out, they didn't seem like the same team, weirdly enough. It's like, even though he's not going to contribute on the score sheet, they seem to need him somehow, don't they, with his mucking around and his desire.
Yeah, like, I don't mind that they sit him, and I know that for diehard Habs fans, that was a tough pill to swallow, because they're trying to maximize him because he's going to play in the playoffs. So he's going to play in the playoffs, so they're going to maximize as much as they can. But I think that they want to use him in that role. The next game, the Canadians were kind of a little down as well, because they lost that game. So he came back in lineup and they lost again. But there's nothing wrong with Gallagher. And last year's 21 was probably a little bit too high for him. This year's 6 is probably a little bit too low. Like, if you look at his expected goals is about 13 or 14. So that means there's like 6 goals that have been on his stick that he missed. So that's a little bit concerning. Yeah. But that puts him in that 12 to 13 range, which I think is comfortable for him this year and next. But he doesn't have much time to get to that, like even 10 this year. But he does bring that jam. But he has super short shifts. His stamina is not there anymore. But yes, he is the life of the party when it comes to energy, right? Like, it's in the heart of the team.
Now, going back to Cole Caulfield, like, I'm a little older than you are, Sean, so you've seen the old footage of Mike Bossy shooting the puck for the Islanders. I always thought Mike Bossy can, pick a deck of cards up the corner of the net like I've never seen before. Caulfield can shoot the puck just as well with his 44th last night. Would it be fair to say, I think he's the most accurate shooter since Mike Bossy for the Islanders. Would it be fair to say right now, or would you agree that Cole Caulfield is the best shooter in the National Hockey League?
Man, that's a good question.
For accuracy.
Like, as best shooter. And I'm not sitting here trying to think of someone to debunk that theory as he sits at 44 goals. It's interesting because I don't know if the NHL has seen someone shoot from the angles that he shoots from. Yes, you get these people in dangerous position. Now, look, you put Cole Caulfield in the middle of the slot and he's shooting on a goalie and he has that spot, he's going to hit it. But he's shooting from different angles, and I know he gets a little bit lower and lower. And that accuracy of going, well, if I bop it off the side of his head or if I squeeze it underneath his elbow, like, who's thinking about that when you have the puck on your stick for half a second? I used to always think one of the most accurate slap shots or snapshots was a guy like Ilya Kovalchuk. He had accuracy with the slap shot. This is more of a wrist snapshot from in tighter. Kovalchuk had that ability from even outside the circles on the top side, but this is on the low side. And I think that he just studies the game and studies the goalies, which goes into, the play. Like, back in the 80s, we could talk about Mike Bossy, and I'm not disagreeing with you on Mike Bossy at all. And yes, I was born in the 70s, so yes, I'm very aware of Mike Bossy and what he did. I have the baby face, but I am old. Mike Bossy, you did probably think, like, this goalie goes down a little bit too soon, and this guy holds his post. I bet Cole Caulfield's studying video on these guys, and one of the reasons why he's able to score the goals that he scores. It's also reading the play and being in the right spot, right? But in today's game, as shooting goes and accuracy, I can't argue that Cole Caulfield's the guy. I'm going to bring this up on my show tomorrow. See what we can come up with. I like the question.
You might have to call in, Don.
Yeah, I mean, it's just nuts. I mean, he's finding little holes at usually the top corners. Like, like nobody that I see in the league at the moment. I mean, Stéphane Richer, the last Montreal, as you know, player to score 50, 51, I think it was in 89, 90. Before that, you have to go to Guy Lafleur. So how hungry are the Montreal faithful to see Cole Caulfield score a 50th goal this season?
Well, I'll tell you how hungry they are. On my show today, this is exactly what we discussed. The question was, and Habs fans were angry. They were upset. Cole Caulfield was not on the ice when they pulled the goalie. Marty St. Louis has to put him on the ice when he pulls a goalie now. Habs fans are hungry for this. They want it. And there was a 2-goal lead. Why? Get the calls. In post-game show, get the calls. Habs lunch. Why was Cole Caulfield not on the ice at the end of the game? He should have been out there. Marty St. Louis is not doing his job. Like, that's how hungry they are for a 50-goal score. Absolutely. So there's your answer.
I love it. Yeah.
We're hungry. And speaking of hungry, Columbus. Look at the Columbus Blue Jackets coming into Montreal tomorrow night. 19-3-4 under Rick Bowness. It's one of the most dramatic changes I've ever seen with a coaching change of sort of, a team turning it around. Have you seen anything? It's pretty dramatic. There's been other dramatic instances too, but this is nuts.
Bowness kind of did it before. When he was at Dallas, and he took him. But Columbus, Ottawa, I saw this today. Since top 3 teams in the NHL since they returned from the Olympics, Buffalo, Ottawa, Columbus. I wouldn't have said that.
Yeah, and those are all the teams that have been in and around the Montreal Canadiens. And the Montreal Canadiens know that all too well from after the Four Nations face-off last year. If you remember, that's when they got on their heater all the way into the playoffs, where they made the playoffs on the last day with 91 points, and they're at 88 points and nowhere close to clinching the playoff spot right now. It's crazy how tight it is in the East. But you go to Rick Bowness. It's so interesting how it works in the NHL, right? You go from a coach that, on the spectrum. Let's go to the coaching spectrum. Dean Evason is on one side of that spectrum from being a player's coach or not a player's coach.
Right.
And Dean Evason might be on the extreme, right? Like on the extreme side of not being a player's coach. We could go down the list of the NHL, but Dean Evason's on, what side of that spectrum that I'm creating he's on. Yeah. But you also know what side Rick Bowness is on. So I like to say that nice guys can make the playoffs, right? Yeah. Nice guys can get the job done. And it's so interesting. Sometimes just the culture change, the way the players feel in the room. And sometimes it's the other way around. Sometimes it's too loose and they need someone with strict orders to stop their feet and kick over a couple garbage cans. But Rick Bowness probably walked in and said, all right, guys, I like coaching. Let's have some fun. Wow, who cares? Like, guys, just go. And then they're winning. Hey, you guys having fun? Cool. I'm just going to fill up this lineup card. You guys good? You good? No problem. All right. You want to go for drinks after? All right. Like, that's Rick Bowness. And there's something to be said about a locker room. And I think Rick Bowness has. Totally. This is something that experience comes, and he's an older guy, and they're talking about an extension. I don't even know if he wants an extension. He might be like, hey,
70 years old.
70,
71.
Yeah.
Something like that.
He doesn't want to work that hard. I don't think he is working that hard. I think he's just showing up, and they're doing it. But it's creating that atmosphere. There's something about having your pulse on a locker room, having your pulse on the team that you're coaching. I can bring it back to the Montreal Canadiens. I find Marty has a great 4 years into the job, still a great pulse of his team. John Cooper, why has John Cooper been so good for so long in one spot? No coaches last this long. And I know winning helps, but because John Cooper always has a good pulse on his team and his locker room. And if you don't, you're going to struggle. Just look down in Toronto. Craig Berube, I don't even think he wants to be there. And he doesn't have, he wants. No, but it's a different spectrum. He wants his locker room to have a certain pulse. That they're not going to his vibe. So now he doesn't understand it, doesn't have a good feel for what the guys want or not. You could not be on the same, but as long as you understand what that room is like, then you're good. You don't need to have it the way you want it, but you can understand it. And I think that's what makes a great coach. And Rick Bowness is doing an incredible job. Can't wait for the game tomorrow against Columbus.
We killed a lot of time here.
We're just starting.
I mean, you're going to have to call in to Sean's show. And
yes, I'd love to.
Hey, always a pleasure. Thanks. We didn't even talk any Alouettes. Now we're up against the clock, which is okay. We got lots of time.
Are the Alouettes over?
Lots of time for that.
Are they over
time already?
I can't talk. I want to know if the Alouettes are over losing to the Rough Riders in the Great.
Oh, next time. That's for the next time.
Is that who they play? I don't remember.
All right, Sean. Thanks for doing this.
Have a good one, guys.
Thanks, Sean.